The gunshot pierced the Montana evening air, causing Violet O'Malley to clutch her 3-month-old daughter Emma tighter to her chest as she urged her exhausted mare forward. Blood seeped through her husband's shirt that she'd torn and tied around her upper arm where the bullet had grazed her. Twilight was falling across the rugged landscape of 1876 Montana territory, and with it, Violet's hopes of reaching civilization before nightfall. "Just a little farther, Emma," she whispered to her whimpering infant. "We'll find somewhere safe soon." The distant howl of wolves made her blood run cold. Her husband Patrick had been dead for barely a month. Consumption took him quickly after Emma's birth, and now her brother-in-law had made his intentions horrifyingly clear. After discovering Patrick's claim papers for their homestead listed her as sole inheritor, he'd attempted to force her hand in marriage. When she refused, his rage had turned deadly. The lights of a small ranch appeared in the distance just as Violet's mare stumbled, nearly sending both riders tumbling. Relief flooded through her veins like cool water. "Thank the Lord," she breathed, pressing forward. The ranch was modest but well-kept, a main house, barn, and several outbuildings surrounded by split-rail fencing. As Violet approached, a tall figure emerged from the barn, rifle raised cautiously. "That's far enough," a deep voice commanded. "State your business, please," Violet called weakly. "My baby and I need help. We've nowhere else to go." The man lowered his rifle slightly, stepping into the light of the lantern hanging by the barn door. His features came into view, strong jaw darkened with stubble, keen eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I'm Kieran Walsh," he said cautiously. "This is my ranch. Violet O'Malley," she managed, swaying in the saddle. "My daughter Emma." The world tilted suddenly and Violet felt herself sliding. The last thing she remembered was the startled shout of the rancher and the sensation of strong arms catching her and her baby before they hit the ground. When Violet awoke, she was lying on a narrow but comfortable bed, her arm properly bandaged. Panic seized her as she realized Emma was not in her arms. "Emma," she cried, struggling to sit up. "Easy now," came a woman's voice. An older woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes appeared beside the bed. "Your little one's just fine. My son has her." As if on cue, the rancher Kieran appeared in the doorway, holding Emma with surprising tenderness for such large, calloused hands. The baby was contentedly sucking on her fist. "She's got quite a set of lungs," Kieran remarked dryly, but his eyes held no malice. "Nearly deafened me when Ma was cleaning you up." "Thank you," Violet whispered, reaching for her daughter. Kieran placed the infant carefully in her arms. "Both of you, I didn't know where else to go." "I'm Martha Walsh," the older woman said. "That bullet graze needed cleaning, but it'll heal just fine. You're lucky it didn't hit anything vital." "Bullet," Kieran's expression darkened. "Who shot at a woman with a baby?" Violet swallowed hard. "My brother-in-law, Frank. My husband died last month and Frank discovered the homestead was left to me. He wanted to marry me to keep the land in the family when I refused. He tried to kill you." Kieran's voice was dangerously quiet. "I don't think he meant to kill me, just frighten me into compliance," Violet replied. "But I couldn't stay, not after that." Martha clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "Well, you're safe here for now. Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." After Martha left, Kieran lingered in the doorway. "Your husband's family, are they looking for you?" "Frank will be," Violet admitted. "He's not a man who likes to lose what he considers his property." Kieran nodded grimly. "I'll keep watch tonight. Try to sleep." Morning came with the smell of coffee and bacon. Violet, feeling stronger, carried Emma into the kitchen where Martha was cooking and Kieran sat at the table reading a month-old newspaper. "There she is," Martha smiled. "Sit down, dear. You need to get your strength back." Kieran folded his newspaper and stood. "I'll check on your mare. She was nearly done in last night." When he'd gone, Martha placed a plate of food in front of Violet. "He may seem gruff, but my Kieran has a good heart. Lost his father 3 years back and has been running this place alone except for a couple of hands." "It's a beautiful ranch," Violet said, bouncing Emma gently in her lap with one arm while attempting to eat with the other. Martha took the baby expertly. "Let me hold this little one while you eat properly." After breakfast, Violet insisted on helping with chores despite Martha's protests. She needed to feel useful to repay their kindness somehow. She was hanging laundry when Kieran approached, his expression troubled. "I rode out at dawn to check the surrounding area," he said without preamble. "Found fresh tracks about 3 miles east, 3 riders moving fast. Could be your brother-in-law," fear clutched at Violet's heart. "I should leave. I don't want to bring trouble to your door and go where?" Kieran challenged. "With a baby and a wounded arm, how far do you think you'd get?" "I can't impose. You're not imposing if I'm offering," he cut in firmly. "I've been thinking. The nearest town is a 2-day ride and there's not much there but a trading post and saloon. The territorial marshal only comes through once a month." Violet waited, unsure where he was heading with this. "I propose a solution," Kieran continued, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. "We tell anyone who comes looking that you're my wife." Violet stared at him, stunned. "Your wife?" "Just for appearances," he clarified quickly. "If this Frank believes you're married to me, he'll have no legal claim on you or your child. My ranch is well established. I have men working for me who are loyal. He'd be a fool to challenge me here." "You would do that for strangers?" Violet asked incredulously. Kieran's eyes hardened. "I've seen what happens to women and children left unprotected in this territory. I won't stand by and watch it happen again." There was a story there, Violet sensed, but now wasn't the time to ask. "How would we explain my sudden appearance? Surely people know you weren't married." "We've been married for over a year," Kieran said, thinking quickly. "You were back east with your family while expecting the baby. Now you've come to join me." It was madness, but Violet couldn't see another option. "All right," she agreed reluctantly, "but only until I figure out a more permanent solution." Kieran nodded. "I'll let the ranch hands know, and Mrs. O'Malley. For this to work, you'll need to start calling yourself Mrs. Walsh." Later that afternoon, Violet met the 2 ranch hands brothers named Samuel and Thomas Cooper. They accepted Kieran's hastily constructed story with minimal questions, though she caught Thomas giving her a curious look when Kieran introduced her as "my wife, Violet." That evening after dinner, while Martha was bathing Emma, Kieran invited Violet to sit on the porch. The Montana sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "Tell me about your husband," Kieran said quietly. "The real one." Violet's throat tightened. "Patrick was kind, a dreamer. He believed we could build something out here, away from the crowded cities back east. We were married barely a year when he fell ill. He held on just long enough to see Emma born." "I'm sorry," Kieran said simply. "What about you?" Violet asked. "You never married." A shadow crossed his face. "Almost. Her name was Rebecca, daughter of a neighboring rancher. We were to be married 3 years ago, but there was a Blackfoot raid. Her family's ranch was hit hard. She didn't survive." "I'm sorry," Violet echoed his words, understanding now his determination to protect her and Emma. "It was a long time ago," he said, though his eyes told a different story. They sat in companionable silence as darkness fell, each lost in memories of loves they had lost. The next morning, Violet awoke to Emma's hungry cries. As she fed her daughter, she heard the sound of horses approaching. Her heart raced with fear. Martha appeared in the doorway, her expression confirming Violet's fears. "Riders coming. 3 men. Kieran says to stay inside with the baby." Violet quickly finished feeding Emma and dressed, straining to hear the conversation outside. When she could stand it no longer, she wrapped Emma in a blanket and moved to the window. In the yard, Kieran stood tall, thumbs hooked in his belt, facing 3 mounted men. One she recognized immediately: Frank O'Malley, his red beard unmistakable even at a distance. The other 2 were strangers to her, likely hired guns. "I'm telling you, Walsh, my sister-in-law came this way," Frank was saying, his voice carrying through the morning air. "Took off with my brother's baby and some valuable papers that rightfully belong to me." "Only woman here is my wife," Kieran replied evenly, "and our daughter. Frank's face darkened. Your wife, you say? Funny, I never heard of you being married. Don't see how that's any of your business, Kieran replied. We've been married over a year now. She was back east with her family while expecting our child. Mind if I speak to this wife of yours? Frank challenged. Just to be certain she's not who I'm looking for. Kieran's stance shifted subtly, and Violet noticed how his right hand moved closer to the revolver at his hip. I mind very much. My wife's not for parading in front of strangers. Now I've answered your questions, I suggest you move on. Frank didn't budge. She's got dark hair, green eyes, pretty little thing, baby's just a few months old. You've just described half the women in the territory, Kieran said dryly. Now I've got work to do. Good day, gentlemen. He turned his back deliberately, a dangerous move, but one that showed his confidence. The Cooper brothers emerged from the barn, rifles in hand, making it clear that Frank would be outnumbered if he chose to escalate. After a tense moment, Frank spat on the ground. This ain't over, Walsh, I know she's here. Threatening a man on his own property is a good way to get shot, Kieran replied without turning around. I won't warn you again. With a muttered curse, Frank wheeled his horse around and the three men rode off. Kieran waited until they were out of sight before hurrying back to the house. He found Violet in the kitchen, pale but composed with Emma in her arms. They'll be back, she said quietly. I know, Kieran agreed. But not today. They'll need to regroup, maybe gather more men. I can't stay here, Violet insisted. I won't put your family in danger. We're already in this, Kieran countered. Besides, where would you go that's safer than here? I have men, weapons, and a defensible position. Martha, who had been listening silently, spoke up. He's right, dear, and that Frank fellow doesn't strike me as the type to give up easily. Your best protection is staying right here with us. That night, Violet couldn't sleep. Every sound made her start, imagining Frank and his men returning under cover of darkness. Finally, she wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and crept out to the porch, needing fresh air. She was surprised to find Kieran already there, rifle across his knees. Couldn't sleep? He asked softly. She shook her head, sitting beside him on the porch step. I keep thinking about what happens next. I can't live as your pretend wife forever. Why not? The question was so unexpected that Violet turned to stare at him. In the moonlight, his face was cast in shadow, unreadable. What do you mean? Kieran cleared his throat. I mean, would it be so terrible? You need a safe place for you and Emma. I have land, a home. I could use a wife, truth be told. Martha's not getting any younger and this place needs a woman's touch. You're proposing a marriage of convenience, Violet asked incredulously. For now, Kieran admitted. Though who knows what might develop in time, I'm not asking for anything improper. You'd have your own room unless things changed between us. Violet was speechless. The idea wasn't without merit. Women alone in the territories faced countless dangers and hardships. A respectable marriage, even one of convenience, offered protection and stability. You barely know me, she said finally. I know enough, Kieran replied. You're brave, resourceful, and you love your daughter fiercely. Those are qualities I admire. The rest we can learn in time. And if we find we don't suit, Kieran shrugged. Then when it's safe, when this business with Frank is settled, you can go your own way with my blessing and whatever support you need to start fresh elsewhere. It was a generous offer, far more than she had any right to expect from a stranger. I need time to think, she said. Of course. He rose, stretching his long frame. Get some sleep, Violet. Nothing will be decided tonight. The next week passed in a strange, tense routine. Violet helped Martha with household chores while caring for Emma. Kieran and his men worked the ranch but kept vigilant watches. There was no sign of Frank, which only increased Violet's anxiety. The waiting was almost worse than a confrontation. During this time, Violet found herself watching Kieran, the gentle way he spoke to his mother, his patience with the green colt he was training, his unexpected tenderness when he held Emma while Violet ate her dinner. He was a good man, she realized, honorable, strong. One evening, they sat together on the porch after Martha had gone to bed. Emma was asleep in a cradle Kieran had built for her, placed carefully between them. "I've been thinking about your proposal," Violet said quietly. Kieran turned to her, his expression carefully neutral. "And if we did this, if we married for real, what would you expect of me?" "Only what you're willing to give," he answered honestly. "I won't lie to you, Violet. I'm a man and you're a beautiful woman. I would hope that in time we might find our way to a true marriage in all senses. But I would never force that. Your comfort, your choice in the matter is paramount." His candor was refreshing. So many men would have made demands or assumptions. "And Emma, would you be a father to her?" "I would consider it an honor," Kieran said, his voice thick with emotion. "She would be my daughter in every way that matters." Violet looked down at her sleeping child, then back to the man beside her. "Then yes, Kieran Walsh, I will marry you." The smile that broke across his face made her heart skip. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider that this arrangement might lead to more than just security. "We'll ride into town tomorrow," he said. "There's a circuit preacher due to arrive. We can make it official before he moves on." True to his word, Kieran had them on the road to town at dawn. Martha insisted on coming along, both as propriety and to help with Emma. The town of Silver Creek was little more than a wide spot in the trail, a general store, a saloon, a small church, and a handful of other buildings clustered together. The preacher, a kind-faced man named Reverend Miller, agreed to perform the ceremony that afternoon. Violet wore her best dress, a simple blue calico that had seen better days. Kieran surprised her with a small gold band he purchased from the general store. "It belonged to Mrs. Jenkins' mother," he explained. "She's been keeping it for a special occasion." The ceremony was brief but meaningful. Violet found herself unexpectedly moved when Kieran repeated his vows, his voice steady and sure. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Kieran leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips there first. It was brief, but sent an unexpected warmth through Violet's body. As they signed the marriage certificate, Violet felt a sense of security she hadn't experienced since before Patrick fell ill. Now she was legally Violet Walsh, and Emma had a father again. On paper, at least, they were a family. They spent the night at the town's small boarding house, Kieran taking a separate room as promised. In the morning, they purchased supplies and prepared to return to the ranch. As Kieran loaded their wagon, the town marshal approached. "Mr. Walsh," he called. "Got a moment?" Kieran nodded, stepping aside to speak with the lawman. Violet couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw Kieran's expression harden. When he returned to the wagon, his jaw was set in a grim line. "What is it?" Violet asked. "Frank O'Malley has been asking questions around the territory," Kieran said quietly. "Marshall says he's been telling people his sister-in-law stole valuable property and ran off. He's offering a reward for information." Violet's blood ran cold. "The claim papers." "That's what I figured," Kieran agreed. "We need to get home and prepare. He's not giving up." The ride back to the ranch was tense, each of them scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. When they arrived, Samuel Cooper rode out to meet them, his expression urgent. "Riders spotted to the east," he reported. 6, maybe 7 men. Thomas is watching them from the ridge." Kieran helped Violet down from the wagon. "Get inside with Ma and the baby. Samuel, gather the men. We need to be ready." Violet grabbed his arm. "Kieran, the papers, they're in my bag." "If that's what he wants, this isn't about papers anymore," Kieran cut her off. "This is about a man's pride. He won't be satisfied until he's made you pay for defying him." Inside the house, Violet helped Martha barricade the windows. The older woman moved with surprising efficiency, checking the loading of a shotgun with practiced hands. "Been living on the frontier for 40 years, she explained, seeing Violet's surprised look. "A woman learns to defend what's hers." Emma began to cry, sensing the tension in the air. Violet lifted her from the cradle, trying to soothe her while her own heart raced with fear. Through the window, she could see Kieran and his men taking positions around the property. The waiting was unbearable. Finally, the riders appeared, 7 men in total with Frank O'Malley in the lead. They stopped just outside rifle range. "Walsh," Frank shouted. "Send out my sister-in-law and the baby and we'll leave peacefully." Kieran stepped forward but stayed within the protective cover of the barn doorway. "She's not your sister-in-law anymore, O'Malley. She's my wife, legally married yesterday in Silver Creek. The baby is under my protection as her father." Frank's response was a stream of profanity. "You're lying, show me proof." "Got the certificate right here," Kieran called back, holding up a paper. "Signed by Reverend Miller and witnessed by half the town. You've got no claim on her or the child." One of Frank's men leaned over to speak to him. Violet could see the argument even from a distance. Several of the men looked uneasy, clearly not having signed up for a fight against a legally married woman. Frank's face was mottled with rage. "The land claim belongs to me, my brother's land." "Your brother left it to his wife, legal and proper," Kieran responded. "She's my wife now, which means any property of hers is protected by me and territorial law. You want to challenge that, you can take it up with the territorial court, but you're not setting foot on my property or coming near my family." The standoff continued for several tense minutes. Finally, 2 of Frank's men turned their horses and rode off, unwilling to fight over what was now clearly a legal matter. Frank shouted after them, but they didn't look back. With his force reduced, Frank's position weakened. After another heated discussion with his remaining men, he turned back to Kieran. "This ain't over, Walsh. I'll be back with the law." "You do that," Kieran replied calmly. "Meanwhile, get off my land before I have you removed for trespassing." With a final curse, Frank wheeled his horse around and galloped off, his remaining men following reluctantly. Kieran waited until they were well away before coming back to the house. Violet met him at the door, Emma in her arms. "Are they gone?" she asked anxiously. "For now," Kieran confirmed. "He'll try to fight this legally, but he won't win. Your husband's will was clear and our marriage is legal. The territorial judge is a fair man, he won't side with Frank." Violet sagged with relief, and Kieran stepped forward, wrapping his arms around both her and Emma in a protective embrace. It was the first time he had held her like this, and Violet found herself leaning into his strength. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest, "for everything." He pulled back slightly, looking down at her with an expression that made her breath catch. "I meant what I said out there. You're my family now, both of you." That night, after Emma was asleep, Violet found Kieran on the porch again. This time, when she sat beside him, he reached for her hand. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about our arrangement." Violet's heart skipped. "Yes. I know we agreed this was a marriage of convenience, but—" He paused, seeming to search for words. "I find myself wanting more than that, Violet. I didn't expect to feel this way again after Rebecca, but these past weeks with you and Emma, I've started to care for you both deeply." Violet's breath caught. "I felt it too," she admitted. "I never thought I could care for a man again after Patrick. It felt like a betrayal somehow, but you've been so good to us, so honorable. How could I not begin to care for you?" Kieran reached up, gently touching her cheek. "I want this to be real, Violet. A true marriage in time, not rushed, not forced, but real." "I want that too," she whispered. When he kissed her this time, it wasn't the brief, chaste kiss of their wedding ceremony. It was tender but filled with promise, with growing passion. Violet leaned into him, allowing herself to feel the stirrings of new love blooming in her heart. Over the following months, their relationship deepened. Kieran was patient, never pushing for more than Violet was ready to give. They shared kisses, increasingly passionate embraces, and long conversations by the fire after Martha retired and Emma was asleep. As autumn turned to winter, Violet officially moved from the guest room to Kieran's bedroom, completing their marriage in every sense. Their first night together was tender, both of them nervous but eager to express the love that had grown between them. In the spring, a letter arrived from the territorial court. Frank's legal challenge had been dismissed. The land that had belonged to Patrick was officially recognized as Violet's property, and by extension, part of the Walsh holdings through her marriage to Kieran. What do you want to do with it? Kieran asked as they sat together on their favorite spot on the porch, Emma now crawling energetically at their feet. Violet considered. It's good land from what Patrick told me. Perhaps we could expand your herd there. Our herd, Kieran corrected with a smile. Everything I have is yours now, Violet, just as everything you have is mine. We're partners in this life. Violet leaned against his shoulder, watching as Emma pulled herself up on a porch post, her little face determined. I never imagined finding happiness again after Patrick died. I was so afraid, so alone. And now, Kieran asked, his arm tightening around her, now I have everything I could want, she said honestly. A home, security for my daughter. She placed his hand on her stomach where the first subtle roundness was beginning to show. And a future with a man I love. Kieran's eyes widened. Are you certain? Violet nodded, laughing at his expression of wonder. Dr. Miller confirmed it yesterday when he was passing through. We'll have a new addition by winter. Kieran whooped with joy, lifting Violet to her feet and spinning her around carefully. Emma giggled at the display, reaching up her arms to be included. Kieran scooped her up too, holding his family close. When I saw you that night, half dead in your saddle with this little one clutched to your chest, I never imagined you'd change my life so completely, he confessed. I thought I was offering protection, a safe haven. Instead, you've given me a second chance at love, at family. We saved each other, Violet replied softly. And now we have the rest of our lives to build something beautiful together. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, casting golden light across the ranch they now shared, Kieran kissed his wife tenderly, their daughter between them and a new life growing within her. What had begun as an arrangement of necessity had transformed into the deepest love. Neither had known a love forged in adversity, but destined to endure for all their days. In the years that followed, the Walsh ranch prospered. Emma grew into a confident young girl who adored her adoptive father. She was joined by 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, who completed their family. Frank O'Malley eventually left the territory, heading to California after losing what remained of his reputation in a series of gambling debts. And every night, Kieran and Violet would sit together on their porch, watching their children play in the yard, marveling at how a desperate escape had led to the greatest happiness either could have imagined. Their love story, begun in danger and uncertainty, had become a testament to courage, honor, and the healing power of true partnership.